You really think buying a house makes you less pathetic? That's what my sister spat at me during my own housewarming. If you've ever been belittled by your own family, even at your highest moment, stay. This story is for you. Drop a one if you've ever been torn down but stood tall anyway. I used to sleep in a freezing car. Now I have a mortgage, a key, and, unfortunately, an invitation list that includes ghosts from my past. The scent of fresh paint still lingered in the hallway, clinging to the baseboards like memory. My fingers brushed against the edge of the window frame as I adjusted a crooked curtain, the fabric soft and new. Outside, Oregon's spring drizzle had turned the sidewalk into a glistening ribbon of puddles. Magnolia trees bent slightly in the breeze, their pink blooms at odds with the nervous knot in my stomach. 3 years ago, my parents told me I was a burden. Today, they RSVP'd to my housewarming with confetti emojis. The absurdity of it wasn't lost on me. Alicia clanged a tray of wine glasses down a little too forcefully on the kitchen island. You sure this is a good idea? I folded the last of the napkins and lined them up beside the hummus. I sent the invites out of politeness. I didn't think they'd actually come. Well, Jenna did more than RSVP, Alicia said, tilting her phone toward me. She just posted a boomerang of her packing to see Lil Sis. With your address geotagged, by the way. My gut twisted. She geotagged my house? Alicia shrugged. Maybe she thinks this is a weekend retreat and not the first place you've called home since your trunk counted as a bedroom. I didn't respond. Instead, I turned toward the mirror in the foyer. My reflection looked settled, maybe even a little proud. My hair was pulled back in a low twist, my lipstick a quiet defiance. I looked like someone who had her life together, but my hands were cold, my knuckles stiff, old instincts. Hey, Alicia said gently. They didn't help you earn this. Don't let them ruin it. I nodded, even as my eyes drifted toward the small table near the entrance, where a stack of cards had begun to pile up. Most were sweet, from coworkers and college friends. But one envelope stood out. Ivory, thick, my name written in my mother's looping cursive. I knew that handwriting, knew the way she curled her E's like little hooks. I opened it. Inside, a card with embossed lilies. No glitter, no warmth. Just a single sentence written neatly in blue ink. We always knew you'd find your way. Eventually. Eventually. Like a backhanded compliment disguised as encouragement. My chest tightened. The words stuck like gum on the soul of my memory. I'd once begged for help while parked behind a Walmart at midnight, my phone at 3% and no gas money. I'd texted Jenna. She'd left me on red. Now she was bringing bubbly. I turned away from the card and adjusted a throw pillow with more force than necessary. They probably just want photos for Facebook. Proud parent at daughter's first home. Never mind the years they erased me. Alicia said nothing. She didn't need to. The doorbell rang, earlier than expected. The sound echoed louder than it should have. My hand paused midair above the doorknob. When I opened it, Jenna stood on the porch, drenched from the rain but smiling like she'd just stepped into a reality show reveal. 2 enormous floral suitcases flanked her like bodyguards. Surprise, she chirped, her voice syrupy and bright. She stepped forward uninvited, wheeling her bags behind her. I didn't move. I didn't even blink. Because suddenly this house didn't feel like a fortress. It felt like a test. They said they'd stay for 2 nights. Then Eric asked if I had storage space in the garage for his tool bench. The morning light crept through the kitchen window like an uninvited guest, stretching across the tiles and illuminating crumbs I hadn't noticed the night before. I sipped lukewarm coffee, staring blankly at the cluster of mugs already drying in the rack. Mugs I didn't use. Jenna liked everything, oversized and floral. Eric drank black coffee like it was a statement. I heard drawers opening behind me. Do you not keep your spatulas in this one? Jenna asked, her tone light, as if the question was innocent. She was wearing my cardigan again. The green one I hadn't even seen in months. I turned. I do. She smiled. Oh, it just felt more natural here. She nudged the drawer shut with her hip and moved on to rearranging the spice rack. By the way, the time expired. Tossed it. Alicia, leaning against the fridge with her arms crossed, didn't say a word. Her eyes met mine briefly, her mouth a tight line. Eric appeared from the hallway, holding a yellow tape measure. Do you know the square footage of the garage? He asked. Just curious, these new builds tend to skimp on width. It's not a new build, I said flatly. And why do you need to know? He shrugged. Just thinking out loud. You know, in case you ever want to add shelving or something. Later, I stepped into the guest room. Once mine, now theirs, and nearly tripped over a duffel bag. The bed had been remade with Jenna's own sheets, pale lavender with embroidered birds. The room smelled like her perfume. A diffuser burbled softly in the corner. The door creaked behind me. Alicia stood there, eyes scanning the room. That's not your blanket, is it? I shook my head. Lunch was awkward. I set out sandwiches and chips, trying to hold on to the illusion of casual. Jenna wrinkled her nose. You know, if the kitchen island was just 2 feet longer, you could add stools. Eric chewed loudly. Also, you might want to look into your property taxes. Oregon's great for inheritance stuff. I blinked. Inheritance? He grinned, too wide. Just general future planning. Always smart to think ahead. Jenna took a sip of water and leaned over to touch my arm. Oh, by the way, we peeked into the second bedroom. You've done it up so cute. Almost feels like a nursery, just needs a crib, right? She laughed. Only if you'd let us, of course. Dinner that evening felt less like a meal and more like a negotiation. My mother, absent in body but very present via group chat, had sent a message just as I set down the salad. Mom. Maybe you're working too hard. Your sister's there now. Let her help. You always wanted family nearby. I wanted to scream. Instead, I collected plates, washed forks, pretended I wasn't losing control of the space I'd clawed back with every paycheck, every lonely shift, every time I said no when it hurt. When I went into my bedroom later that night, something was off. My closet door stood slightly ajar. A box of journals, tucked on the top shelf, had been moved. The flap wasn't folded the way I left it. My nightstand was bare. A framed photo of me and Alicia from last winter. Gone. I swallowed hard. I opened drawers slowly, checked under my bed. My breath came shallow, like the air itself had shifted. And then, just as I stepped into the hallway, I heard voices. Jenna's whisper. She's always been spineless. This'll be easy. Eric chuckled low, a sound like gravel in syrup. I stood frozen, every nerve on edge, listening to them plot inside my walls, like termites. Drink up, sis. She grinned. Something in her tone didn't sit right. So when she turned away, I switched the glasses. The house was warm with the hum of soft jazz and low conversation, candles flickering on every surface. Shadows played on the walls like they belonged to another life, one not marked by rain-soaked car windows and hunger pains timed to sunset. For a moment, it almost felt like home, until Jenna handed me the wine. It was red, rich, expensive looking. I brought the rim to my nose and inhaled. Under the notes of blackberry and oak, there was a bitterness. Faint, but wrong. I blinked. Jenna's back was to me now, her laughter floating toward the hallway as she greeted a new guest. Eric was distracted, adjusting the volume on the speaker. His glass sat on the counter next to mine, nearly identical, save for a smudge on the rim. I moved quickly. No hesitation. No second-guessing. The glasses switched places like dancers in a routine no one noticed. Caleb stood near the fireplace, chatting with Alicia. I hadn't seen him in over a year. Not since he'd left without a goodbye after I lost that temp job. A job Jenna had promised to help me get, only to forget a key reference call and cost me the contract. She had smiled through that too. More guests arrived. Toasts were made. Jenna floated from group to group like a politician in pearls, Her hands expressive, her voice honeyed. She caught Caleb's eye and winked. I watched him glance away, stiff. Then Eric took a sip from his glass. He was seated on the armrest of the couch, one foot tapping to the beat of the music. His first swallow didn't faze him. The second came slower. 15 minutes later, his forehead had a sheen of sweat. At 20, he excused himself, mumbling something about needing air. I followed him with my eyes until he disappeared down the hall toward the guest bathroom. Jenna noticed. Her smile faltered. "What's wrong with him?" She asked no one in particular. Alicia leaned in. "Maybe too much wine." "Just one glass," Jenna said quickly, then looked at me. I raised my untouched glass. "Haven't had a sip." Her eyes flicked from my hand to the counter as if replaying the moment in reverse. Her smile returned, tighter now. "Natalie," she began, her voice all syrup and apologies. "I was just telling Caleb about how you've—" I stepped forward, interrupting her without touching her. "To surprises," I said, raising my glass higher. "And to learning who's really welcome in your home." The music softened, like it sensed something shifting. A couple of guests murmured, uncertain if this was part of a joke or a dramatic toast. Jenna stood frozen, her expression caught between indignation and confusion. Her eyes narrowed just slightly before darting toward the hallway where Eric hadn't returned. Caleb's gaze found me from across the room. He tilted his head, one eyebrow rising. Not mockingly, just curious. And maybe, just maybe, a little impressed. I didn't return the look. I didn't need to. Tonight wasn't about him. It was about me finally stepping forward, and her realizing she might have underestimated the girl she once left behind. They thought I'd never snoop, but I had every right. It was my house, and what I found was worse than I imagined. The house had settled into its post-party quiet, the kind that felt too deliberate, like the silence after a slammed door. Guests had trickled out with slurred goodbyes and half-drunk flutes of wine, leaving behind a mess of half-eaten cheese, wilted napkins, and a coldness that wasn't from the Oregon night. Jenna and Eric had gone to bed early, or at least pretended to. Their bedroom door had clicked shut with finality. I stood in the kitchen longer than necessary, pretending to clean. Alicia had gone home an hour ago, but promised to text if anything felt off. I wasn't tired. I wasn't calm. The hallway stretched before me, dim under the warm bulb above the entryway. I paused outside the guest room. My guest room. Their guest room now, apparently. The door was cracked open. A breeze from the cracked window stirred the curtains. I told myself I'd just peek. Just to check if they'd spilled wine or left laundry lying around. Just to make sure this room still belonged to me. The suitcase was unzipped. It sat by the dresser like a beast resting after feeding. I knelt in front of it, heart a dull drumbeat against my ribs. The top layer held clothes, folded too neatly, too deliberately. Beneath it, a manila folder peeked from under a sweater. My fingers closed around it before my brain had time to tell them not to. I flipped it open. Copies of real estate co-ownership agreements, printouts of Oregon's rental and occupancy laws. Highlighted sections that referenced implied tenancy and family cohabitation rights. A page with my name typed in, next to blank signature lines. Scribbles in the margins read, "Push for shared maintenance costs." And worse, present as gift idea. I shuffled further, hands cold. There were photos, my kitchen, living room, the view from my bedroom window. Each labeled with sticky notes. Convert to nursery, office potential, master suite. A note in Eric's precise, slanted handwriting read, "She'll never contest family. Emotional leverage. Mom." I felt the air thicken. My house, my sanctuary, had been dissected and analyzed like a business acquisition. A memory flickered. Jenna's voice, syrup sweet, years ago. "Don't worry about paperwork, Nat. Family trusts each other." My stomach turned. Tucked in the back of the folder was another file, red-taped bolder font. Plan B, If Natalie resists, I unfolded it with trembling hands. A drafted letter to a legal firm, claiming cohabitation for 6 months, citing joint contributions to the well-being and maintenance of the shared home. There were placeholders for fabricated utility bills, grocery receipts, photos of family events in the living room, photos they hadn't even taken yet. The final line read, "If she pushes back, we'll take the emotional route." Frame her as unstable, overworked, anxious, paranoid. I sat down slowly on the edge of the bed. The room was too quiet, the kind of quiet that screamed. Moonlight spilled through the window, soft against the papers now scattered in my lap. I couldn't move, couldn't think. Footsteps padded up the hall. Alicia appeared in the doorway, phone still in her hand. Her gaze swept over the scene. Me, the suitcase, the documents. She stepped inside, took one look at the letter in my hands, and said softly, "They didn't come to celebrate, Nat. They came to steal." I made pancakes. They thought it was a peace offering. But every plate comes with a side of confrontation. The kitchen smelled like butter and sweet batter, sunlight spilling through the windows like a false promise. I had set the table with quiet precision. 6 plates, silverware aligned, napkins folded into imperfect triangles. A pitcher of orange juice sweated beside a stack of pancakes. Jazz played from the Bluetooth speaker, smooth and disarming. Jenna and Eric strolled in first, sleep-fluffed and smiling, as if they'd spent the night dreaming of a future they had no right to. My parents followed, laughing at some story Jenna was telling. My father's eyes lit up at the scent of coffee. My mother paused long enough to compliment the table setting, calling it quaint. I could have laughed if I weren't already steadying the storm in my gut. Then Caleb appeared at the side door, early, just like I'd asked. He gave me a nod, eyes scanning the room. Alicia slipped in behind him, arms crossed, not bothering to hide her suspicion. We sat, toasted, passed plates. Syrup flowed. Eric even leaned back and murmured, "Best coffee I've had in a while." I smiled. Then I stood. "I'm so glad everyone's here," I said, voice light, almost sing-song. Breakfast is sacred, right? A time for truth. I reached beneath the table and placed the manila folder at the center like a holy offering. Jenna stiffened. "What's this?" Mom asked. I opened the folder with care. "Just a few things I found last night. Thought I'd share over pancakes." I read aloud, my voice clean and sharp. "If Natalie resists, delay move out. Pursue legal claim via Oregon Cohabitation Statute 112.4. My father looked up, brow furrowed. "Present the move as a family necessity due to emotional distress. Manipulate her attachment to avoid confrontation." Jenna's fork froze halfway to her mouth. Eric stopped chewing. Then I pulled out my phone. I also have a voice recording, just in case the printed plans didn't speak loud enough. I tapped play. Jenna's voice poured from the tiny speaker, hushed and toxic. "Just give it time. She's still weak. She always was." My mother's lips parted. My father leaned forward. Caleb, standing behind me now, added quietly, "These are legal templates, not casual notes. Whoever prepared this intended to use it." Jenna looked between them all, face reddening. "You snooped?" "That's an invasion of privacy." "Into a bag in my guest room," I replied. "In a house I paid for. Alone." Eric stood up, posture stiff. "You're being dramatic. You misunderstood." I turned to him. "Then what's this? A fan fiction about how to steal someone's mortgage?" He bristled but said nothing. I stepped toward Jenna, folder in hand. My voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. "You used to mock me for sleeping in a Honda. Now you're scheming to sleep in the house I built?" Her face contorted. She stood too fast, chair scraping the floor. "You think this makes you the better person?" I stared back at her, calm and cold. Number it just makes me the owner. I changed the locks that afternoon, not just on the doors, but on the parts of me they thought they still owned. The old keys clinked in the bowl by the entryway, now stripped of power. I watched the locksmith drive off, his truck tires crunching over last week's rain-hardened gravel. Spring sunlight spilled across the porch, dusting the threshold in gold. My house. My house finally felt like it knew who belonged inside. Inside, everything was quieter. The furniture had shifted just a bit. Couch angled toward the window now, no longer hiding the scuff mark Jenna left on the baseboard. The walls had a fresh coat of paint, something warm and soft like chamomile. I donated the guest bed frame earlier that morning. Goodwill came with a truck, took it away without questions. In the empty guest room, I stood for a moment, hand brushing the bare floor where her suitcase had once rested. No trace of her remained, not even the faint scent of that vanilla body spray she always overused. Caleb arrived mid-afternoon, carrying a flat-pack desk and a look I hadn't seen in years. Quiet, measured, maybe even humbled. "Home office," he said, lifting the box through the door. "You deserve one." I helped him assemble it slowly, both of us working in silence at first. Then, "I'm not asking for anything," he said finally, voice low. "Just room to show you I'm not who I was." I didn't answer. Not yet. Some things take longer to rebuild. My phone rang just after he left. Derek from my last consulting gig. "We're expanding," he said. "New Seattle branch. I want you to help build it. Co-founder title, equity. Your call." I looked around my living room. The quiet no longer felt like loneliness. It felt like space. Space to grow. "I'm in," I told him. Later, I found an envelope in the mailbox. My name in Jenna's looping cursive. Inside, a letter. "I know things got tense. I just hope someday we can talk. Maybe even share the house again when you've cooled down." She didn't sign it with love. Just her name. I folded the letter in half, then again. I walked to the fireplace and fed it to the flames. It curled, blackened, turned to ash. Freedom doesn't always roar. Sometimes it crackles quietly. I grabbed my phone and texted Alicia. Me. "Dinner on the porch tonight?" Alicia. "Only if we toast to freedom." Me. "Absolutely. And no ghosts allowed." A letter came, not in Jenna's handwriting, but in my mother's. I didn't open it right away. It arrived folded neatly in a pale blue envelope, the kind Mom used to send birthday cards in when I was younger. Back when they still remembered. No return address, just my name, handwritten in tight cursive that made my stomach tighten. I left it on the console table by the front door. Walked past it 3 times. Made tea. Rearranged the spice drawer. Watered the fern. Alicia saw it and raised an eyebrow but said nothing. She knew better than to push. Night fell fast, the clouds outside folding into each other like fists. The wind rattled the porch chimes and the lights flickered once. I sat with the envelope in my lap, the storm rolling outside like a slow drumbeat. When I finally opened it, the scent of lavender hit me. Her perfume, pressed into the paper. "Natalie, I hope this reaches you in a softer moment. I want to believe there's still room for understanding between us. I know things got out of hand. Your sister didn't mean to hurt you. Eric was only trying to help in his way. We've all been under stress." I stopped and let my eyes blur. Picked up again 3 lines down. "You've always been emotional, sensitive. But that doesn't mean we don't love you. We're still your family, even if you've chosen distance. Maybe one day we can all sit down again. No drama, just us." I let the letter fall against my knee. It was always this way. The gaslight tucked inside a compliment. The apology buried beneath my supposed flaws. Alicia walked in, holding 2 mugs. "Want to talk about it?" she asked. I shook my head. "It's just more of the same." I stood and walked toward the fireplace, letter in hand. No speeches, no tears. I folded it once, then again, and slipped it into the flames. It curled, then cracked, then vanished. As the fire swallowed it whole, I whispered to the empty room, "I know exactly who I am. The flames died quickly. The quiet returned. Then, a knock. Not urgent, not angry. Just 3 polite raps. I opened the front door to find no one there. Only a manila envelope on the step. Tidy. Professional. In the corner, the logo of a law firm I didn't recognize. I didn't touch it yet. Just stood there for a long moment, letting the wind press against me and the porch light buzz gently above. Whatever it was, I'd be ready. The sun dipped low behind the cedar trees, washing Natalie's freshly painted porch in a soft amber hue. The air buzzed with a gentler kind of anticipation. No tension, no manipulation, just warmth and dinner aromas wafting from the kitchen where Alicia was humming along to an old Fleetwood Mac song. Natalie lit 2 citronella candles on the patio table, stepping back to admire the setting. A simple floral runner, mismatched vintage plates, and glasses filled with sparkling cider. It wasn't fancy, but it was exactly hers. For the first time in years, she wasn't planning around someone else's expectations. No facades, no silent performances. She glanced at her phone. Caleb had texted 10 minutes ago. Parking now. Should I bring the bread? She smiled. A week ago, she might have overanalyzed the message, looking for double meanings. Now? She just texted back. Bring yourself. And maybe napkins. When he arrived, he brought both. And a bottle of fig jam he'd found at the weekend market. Fig jam, he said, raising it like a trophy. Because I know how you judge toast without toppings. Alicia rolled her eyes from the doorway. He's trying too hard. Natalie laughed, the sound ringing freer than it had in months. They sat down together, Natalie, Alicia, and Caleb. And for the first few bites, the only sound was cutlery against plates. The silence was not heavy or forced. It was companionable. Then Alicia raised her glass. To earned peace, she said, and better company. They all clinked. To earned peace, Natalie echoed, her voice firm but light. Caleb set his fork down. So, Seattle? Natalie nodded slowly. I'm going. I signed the papers yesterday. They're holding the co-founder title for me. Office opens in June. You're leaving? Alicia asked, though her smile never faded. I mean, I knew it, but hearing it out loud feels big. It is big, Natalie said. But not like before. Not like I'm running away. She paused, her hand resting on the wood grain of the table. For so long, this house was the destination. Proof that I made it. But I realized it's just another step. I want to keep moving. Not because I'm scared, but because I can. Caleb looked at her differently now. Not with pity or nostalgia, but with admiration that didn't need to be voiced. He raised his glass again, this time just to her. And Jenna? Alicia asked, not unkindly, but with that grounded tone that had always brought Natalie back to center. Natalie leaned back in her chair. She's quiet for now. The letter was her last performance, and I didn't applaud. That's what burned her most. There was a beat of silence. Then Natalie added, I left a voicemail this morning. Said I wish her healing, and that the locks have changed. On the house, and on me. You're a better woman than I am, Alicia muttered, biting into her salad. No, Natalie said. Just done trying to be the one who changes everything for everyone else. They moved inside once the mosquitoes got bold. Dishes clinked in the sink while Alicia told stories about her clients. Dramatic brides and overbearing mothers-in-law. Caleb offered to fix the loose cabinet hinge in the kitchen. Natalie let him. Later, after Alicia had gone and the porch was dark again, Caleb lingered at the threshold. You ever think we made a mistake? He asked. Natalie looked up at him from the doorway. Not sure which part you mean. Leaving, staying, not calling, all of it. She didn't rush to answer. Instead, she reached out and tapped his chest lightly. We both made mistakes, but I don't regret the detour. It brought me home to myself. He nodded. Can I take you to dinner before Seattle? You just did, she said, half smiling. He laughed. Then can I take you to dinner again? Natalie tilted her head. You can try. He left with a grin. Natalie locked the door behind him, not out of fear, but ritual. She looked around the space, her space, and let her breath settle deep into her lungs. The house had seen too much too soon, but it had held. Just like she had. A ping sounded from her phone. An email. Subject line, "Welcome to your new beginning." It was from the startup's HR flight details for orientation, a housing guide in Seattle, and a note that said, "We're excited to have you." Natalie didn't feel overwhelmed. She didn't feel afraid. She walked to the kitchen, poured the last of the sparkling cider, and stepped onto the porch one last time for the night. The sky stretched out in navy and gold. No ghosts tonight. Just freedom. And the sound of her own heart, steady and sure. The house they tried to steal became the stage where every mask was torn away. Natalie didn't just reclaim her home, she reclaimed the version of herself they once tried to erase. Because justice doesn't always come with sirens or verdicts. Sometimes it comes with a locked door, a quiet porch, and the courage to say no. No wall of lies can stand forever against the tide of truth. Like, share, and comment if this story spoke to you. Drop a 1 if you've ever had to fight for your own space.